What if your body isn't struggling to heal, but has never actually learned how to receive? This season, we're talking a lot about building a body that can hold you, a body that can stay present, hold truth, and not collapse when things start to shift. But there's another side to that, because even if your body can hold more, can it actually let anything in? Can it receive support, receive stillness, receive something without needing to do anything in return? For a lot of people, that's unfamiliar territory. The body stays active, subtly bracing, trying to stay one step ahead. So today, we're moving to something that doesn't require effort or analysis, just experience. Sound. Sound is a way of reaching the body directly. Nothing to figure out, nothing to perform. It meets you where you are and gives the body space to respond. Today, I'm joined by Sabrina Rollo, a transformational wellness guide who works with breath, sound, and the subconscious to support nervous system regulation and help shift long-held patterns stored in the body. Her work invites the body to soften out of holding and into receiving. In this conversation, we'll explore what actually happens in the body during a sound healing session, how it supports nervous system regulation, and what begins to shift when the body finally lets go. So, if you've ever felt like you're doing all the right things, but nothing is actually changing, this might not be about doing more. It might be about letting something in. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to ask you, what drew you to sound healing?
I guess, like most things, it came to me. I can't think of the exact moment. My background is in dance. Early 2020, when I was really starting to get into guiding breathwork circles, I wanted to collaborate with people. And so I did collaborate with a sound healer, and she's amazing. We're still very good friends. And then, everything happened and we couldn't be together. We were pulled apart. We're all quarantined and inside. And I just had this really down morning, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I need to focus on something. I'm inside and everything's happening and I need to focus this energy. And as silly as this sounds, I opened Instagram and I was like, send me a message. And the first thing I see is a sound healing training. And I was like, I'm doing it. I'm just signing up. So I guess that's what drew me to it. I was able to do it virtually from home to focus on that. I was able to practice, and it was interactive, and it was something I could ground myself in while everything else felt so chaotic.
So did it start with more of a self-experience?
Definitely. Yeah, it was definitely, like I said, my background is in dance, so I never saw myself going in the way of music, if you will. And I always considered sound healing like a musician. And I didn't read music. I didn't play music. I understand rhythm and I understand musicality, but I just was like, oh, I'm not a musician. So there was always this element where, even though I was interested in it, I was like, that's not for me. I'd have to go back and learn all these things. And so I think that's what drew me to that is, oh, I can do this. I don't have to know. I can learn as I go. And that was something I was exploring as well. I'd actually already bought some bowls, funny enough, because I said I was interested in it. So I was like, okay, now you actually can do something with this. There was also an element of, with so much chaos and so much energetic chaos in my home, I had 2 young kids at the time. I wanted to be able to offer something to them that I knew could be helpful. So I was able to practice with them a little bit too, which was really nice.
Was there a moment where you felt the impact in your own body through training, through practicing? Were you able to receive that experience as well.
Definitely. Through the training, it's not like teaching you how to play guitar, teaching you how to do things. It's exploring different instruments and tools that you use in sound healing. At one point, you get into the voice of it. And that for me was actually the huge shift, because I was just so uncomfortable with my voice and so uncomfortable being heard. And like I said, I was a dancer. I'm not a singer. I'm not a this. And so I think while the bowls are impactful, I was familiar with that energy and I was familiar with that. But learning how powerful, even like humming in your own body. And because you're training and you're in it, you're like doing something and then going back and re-listening and noticing how it feels and using your own voice for your own tool shifted something in me that I realized I was always doing. When you start to recognize something, you're like, oh, I've always talked to myself. I've always hummed through things. I've always, in moments of stress, I will sing songs. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've already been using sound healing. I had no idea. So for me, that was really the moment of like, this is inside of me and it wants to come out, rather than something I need to learn and bring in. That was the biggest shift in that.
Did you find that as you started looking at your own gifts and talents as the tool versus, like you said, learning something that's completely outside of yourself, did it become much more natural as, oh, this is who I am?
Definitely. Many moons before all of this, I worked at a coffee shop, but there was this woman that would come in that would do coffee ground readings. And I would just save up all my tips. And like twice a year, I'd do this reading with her. But I consider myself a skeptical believer. So while I do believe in things, I'm like, you tell me, you give me the information. This is way back when we didn't have phones and we had to take notes. And so I've handwritten notes where she's like, you're going to be working with music. You're going to be working with people that have handicaps and this and that. And I was like, oh no, I just don't see myself like that at all. And once I started to like settle into the sound healing, I was like, oh, this is what she meant. And I wouldn't necessarily consider a handicap. That's like the word she used, is more people with struggles and issues that are coming to the surface. And I realized, years of being a mover and being in your body and hearing music in a different way and feeling it in a different way. What I love about sound healing is I can't do it wrong. And I think so much of, for me, music is like, oh, I'm not playing the right note, or it's not this, or it's not that. And it's so intuitive for me. It's like the string between me and the person receiving it, because it's just an offering. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I love that I didn't have to rehearse it. I didn't have to practice it. I couldn't mess it up. I couldn't ruin it. And I think that opened the door for me to really allow myself to go a little deeper in it.
Oh, I love that. So what is happening physiologically and energetically during a session?
Really what's happening is we're giving ourselves a chance to relax. And I know it's like, oh, we all want that, right? We want to relax. But when we can really let go of the armor, we're allowing ourselves to get out of the fight or flight and that stress. Just booking time for yourself to lay down and to not have to do anything with that time is so powerful. So really what's happening when we are hearing the sounds, it is like regulating and synchronizing your brain waves to the sound frequencies. And it just puts you in a different brainwave state. We go from that problem solving, thinking, going, to naturally starting to lower into these slower brainwave states that are more relaxing and attuned.
Would you consider it to be a form of grounding?
Definitely. Obviously, there's different relations that people have to sounds. And I like to open every sound bath with, some sounds are going to be awesome, some sounds aren't. They all pass. So what might be grounding to someone might not be as grounding to someone else. But in general, sound is very grounding. It's very like downgrading, right? In that way, it takes you out of that very busy, chaotic energy, even just a little bit lower,
So would you say that the sound itself helps people get into a state where they can receive?
I think so. Yeah.
I think so too. That's what I'm hearing. Okay, so what will people typically feel when they first start?
If it's the first person's first sound bath, I think it's relaxing, it's soft, it's melodic. I want to say they feel relaxed, but in truth, oftentimes you kind of don't, because it's not easy to lay down and it's not easy to just let go of everything. But whether it's within that first session, given some time or maybe a second or following sessions, allowing the body to feel safe in those still moments, then starts to open that door to receiving. So people do end up feeling relaxed. It is, your heart rate slows down, your body can relax, your muscles can relax. Sometimes people fall asleep, which like, oh no, I ruined it. And I'm like, that just means your physical body felt safe enough to turn off in that moment. But you're never like unconscious. You're always there and you're always receiving.
Well, if you go to sleep, your mental's not going on overdrive.
Exactly.
And the tissues themselves, everything is a living cell and we're all energy, receives purely without the interruption of, am I doing this right?
Exactly.
Oh my God, my leg hurts. Am I breathing? You don't go into that. You actually just in that pure state, there's a consciousness there, even if you are sleeping.
Yeah, it's like giving you something to focus on, and just that little bit of like, oh, there's something there gives you the opportunity to not focus on other things.
Would you say that people that come in and have that difficult time at first of letting go, are they aware that they're holding it? Or does the different sounds that you're using sort of break the barrier and that itself drops them in?
I think it can be both. For some people, it takes a little longer to drop in based on their environment, what they're holding on. If a friend invited you to come and didn't quite know what you're getting yourself into versus you are exploring that. In general, a lot of these modalities are umbrellas, so it really is the practitioner. And sometimes it could be as simple as their voice, you don't quite like that, or you didn't like certain words, or so it's hard for you to relax in that way. But I think it's two-part. I think the sound can obviously help people drop in. Hopefully before that, the practitioner is opening the session, helping you feel safe, letting you know that whatever needs to come up can come up, and you're already starting to feel that safety and that stillness and that softening. And then the sound, maybe you're a little more open to letting it come in.
I so much agree with what you said about the practitioner, because you can do sound healing in many different environments. It can be a one-on-one, it can be a group, it can be in a retreat style. But if the practitioner that's leading it, you don't feel safe with, like you said, or there's no thread connection, it would be very hard to get down into that next level.
Exactly. I think it definitely helps to open the session in that way. And like, to your point, you can also do them like inside, outside. And so often people that want to book a group and like, we want to be outside. And I'm like, that's wonderful. And it's amazing. And you definitely can do that. Will you be distracted? Will you be distracted by all the things? So it really does come down to that person and where they're at.
Where do you see the body bracing the most when you're working with one-on-one or in a group?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, it's different for every person, but in general, especially nowadays, it's really in our chest. It's really in our lungs. It's really in our heart space, in our bellies. A lot of times, I really love to do breath work followed by sound.
Oh, absolutely.
And to that point too, it gives the body a chance to like move some things through so that by the time we're receiving the sound, but a lot of times it's in the jaw, it's in our sense of expression. We know that the shoulders are tight, we know our neck is tight, but we don't realize that we've been like just tense in our face. So I always start with just like a softening of the body. Everything I do, I always take quite a while to go through and soften the body and take note so that the person themselves too afterwards can go, oh, I feel a little lighter at least, or that's different. But definitely the heart space, definitely the jaw, the neck.
Yes, and just that upper tension.
Yes.
A lot of people don't realize how much they're holding in their jaw.
Well, if you think about it too, whatever is happening on both ends of the spectrum, whether it's like challenge and grief and depression or joy and hope, it's like then getting it all the way up and out. How often do we talk about things? Do we express things? Do we sing? So it's like that gets stuck.
And it could be, like you said, on either side of the spectrum, but sound really helps it flow because we're not supposed to hold on to that. It's a movement through where, oh, I recognize it.
Yeah.
It can become other types of pain, like physical pain. If we don't allow it to move through the body, that energy settles in the space where your physical body is supposed to be helping you.
Yeah.
And it creates that block, and then your body has to detour around that.
Exactly.
So all energy should be able to move through and flow so that the universal energy is where we get our energy from, and we're not doing our own personal depletion of that.
Yeah, like clear channels, right? We want to like clear our channels. And just like a river, there's areas where maybe there's a lot of roots or muck. And I feel like that's what happens in the body. And that's not to say it's always stuck there, but, you know, different things and different times in our lives, we hold it in these different places.
And just allowing yourself to acknowledge that, yeah, we hold, and it's not something we fix, we have to address right now. It's really just allow it to be there. Because sometimes once you say, you know what, I feel a little stuck, the message has been received and it will start to flow.
Mm-hmm.
But having other tools, which is why we're doing this episode, to learn how to receive, to learn how to be more aware of what's going on in our own bodies is kind of the whole point. And in the end, all of these things that you may try or experience will help regulate your nervous system. With all the technology and the information moving so fast now, and everybody having such a fast-paced life, I don't even want to say we forget. We don't know anymore what being relaxed is.
Mm-mm. Oh, no. I mean, you might have downtime and you're on your phone. I know I'm one of these people. I'm like, oh, I should be doing something. I should be doing the dishes. I should be learning something. I should be getting ahead. And it's like, oh my gosh. At least in my experience, traditional, if you will, methods of meditation are like, sit still and be quiet. It's the opposite for me. It makes me anxious. I'm not doing it. It's like my brain needs to focus. And so for me, in the modalities that I offer, and sound being one of them, it's like it has that to focus on. So because our brain's incredible, we can focus on that and also be aware of what's happening. And like you said, like letting it move through. And I often find that while life is uncomfortable and challenging and some of these tools are hard, sound is hard because there's nothing for you to do. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm not asking you to sweat or breathe or do anything. And you can tell people like fidget and they don't know what to do when they're laying there. We're also so sedentary in certain things, but like you lay down for an hour, let's say, it's uncomfortable to lay for an hour. You don't realize, because you're holding all this tension, that once you start to relax, I'm hurting. I'm actually in pain now. I've held on to this, and relaxing doesn't feel good at first, if you will. It's like the unraveling feels a little challenging, a little hard.
Uncomfortable. With the people who don't feel much at all because they're having a really hard time sort of getting into that state where the sound can then allow the receiving and then the flow, is that the shift that they feel? Is the shift into pain and the shift into, wow, I'm really uncomfortable? Because people think they go in and they're like, oh, I'm going to feel great. This is going to heal me. But for people who are uncomfortable or holding, resistant, hesitant, so to speak, is that the shift that they might feel at first until they can get past it?
I think most things, it's got to get uncomfortable before it gets comfortable. For me, healing, quote unquote, is the unburdening of patterns. It's like opening that junk drawer. So it has to get messier before it can get more organized. It's like this idea of fix me. I'm here. I showed up to the class. This make me all better. And as we all know, the work is in the little moments. Sound, just like everything else, people can feel uncomfortable. It is relaxing. The sounds feel nice. Sometimes they're not. Some people have different associations. I was saying I've done some sound bath with my kids, and like I love chimes, but they see chimes as like a horror movie. They're like, oh, it feels creepy. So they're not going to relax if they're feeling scared or creepy. And so within a sound bath, even there might be sounds like, oh, I'm tensing. But what happens is like, oh, why am I doing that? And then there's the opportunity to be willing to put the key in the door before we can open it. And the awareness, like you said, is the key. And then once we turn the door and we open it, you might not always like what you see in there. You know, as you take the drawer out and you're cleaning it out and you're going through that, you might not like those memories. You might not like that. And it takes time. Nothing is gonna a one and done. Nothing is gonna fix you. Nothing is gonna erase everything.
Well, and put it this way: when say there's chimes or a certain vibration frequency, if you will, that it doesn't resonate with you, a lot of times what that frequency is doing is it's pushing something uncomfortable up to the surface. So there's a parallel of, oh, I don't like that sound. But it's because that particular frequency is bringing something that's probably very uncomfortable up to the surface so that you could look at it.
Right.
So if you look at it that way, like it's moving through.
Exactly. And that's kind of the point. If everything felt good, why are you there? You know what I mean? Every now and again, we just want like the nice, but those sounds that are dissonant, that don't necessarily feel good, and they do bring things to the surface, are like breaking it up.
Very necessary.
Yeah, you've got to be willing to do that. And also, I tried to guide people into when that comes up, rather than trying to figure it out or understand it or fix it, it's get curious, right? It's, what is this? Why does this make me think like this? Or, if you need to focus on something because it's taking you and distracting you, is come back to, okay, where in my body am I feeling this? Or what is coming up for me? Sometimes people see colors or memories or symbols. Then you can go a little deeper, right? And then by then the sound has moved. You're on to the next thing.
I like the way that you said, get curious. Because for me, instead of, oh, I didn't like that, I don't want to do that again, there's a lesson there. And so nothing is a negative experience or a negative sound or a negative emotion if we get curious enough to really look at it from not being in that horrible feeling that you're having, but from outside of it, because it will tell you something. That's the only reason it's still in your body, is because it wants to be heard or it wants to be let go. I don't need to hold this anymore. It might not even be a story, but you're storing it because your body is like, we need to know what this feels like, because I don't ever want to feel like this again, which is a complete opposite of actually saying thank you to it and letting it go.
And we get comfortable with familiarity, even if it's not good or it's not healthy or it's habit. Our body wants to feel comfortable. It wants that comfort and safety. If someone's listening to this and they're curious about sound healing, or they're not sure, there's someone who's, I don't lay down. Oh, it's not for me. I can't relax. And it's like, well, that's why we're here. I'm with you. But also, it's okay if it's not the best time the first time, or again, like going back to the practitioner, it could be the person's voice or it just didn't suit you. So be willing to stay curious and to maybe explore something else, or acknowledge this just isn't for me. This just is not the modality that allows me to receive. And that's okay too.
That's why there's so many of them, is to find what connects in with you, where you're going to get an optimal experience so that your body can heal.
And that, to me, is an awareness, right? Is a part of the healing work. Is it's okay and staying compassionate, but also acknowledging, I'm not going to force this. This just doesn't work for me. Even though everyone says it should do X, Y, Z for me, it doesn't. And that's okay too.
How would you describe sound healing in relation to, how does it actually regulate the nervous system?
I mean, there's definitely a science behind it, and I don't want to butcher that, but it has to do with the fact that we're made up of mostly water, and that vibration and frequency moves through water. And so I often like to remind people, even if you fall asleep right away, which many people do, it's still interacting with your body and the water and, in the cells, and everything is made up of energy. So there's that part of it. But I really think it's being in a safe environment. There's a level of vulnerability when you're laying down with your eyes closed, whether you're in a private room with someone or in a group with someone, of being open to receiving. And what happens is it lowers our heart rate. It brings us out of that brainwave state of trying to solve everything into a lower pace. It gives us time to think things all the way through if you are working through something, or feel something all the way through, but also it downgrades and grounds your entire system. It takes you out of that fight or flight and that need to hold on and that need to hold the tension, and allows you to get into that place. And like I said, some people can drop right in. They feel really good about that. Sometimes it takes a little longer. So it comes down to being safe.
Always. Everything comes down to being safe. And it doesn't have to be so safe that nothing will ever happen, but safe enough to feel supportive in a supportive way. Yeah. What I like to call what you just described is the pause. It allows you to pause. And when we can pause is the only time where we're actually receiving, because we're not trying to do anything. We're not trying to fix anything. We're just the pause, and then it moves through.
I think it can get confusing sometimes because we have our nervous system wanting to be on and to keep us safe, and it's putting in an effort to keep you safe, and you've got fight or flight. I think sometimes it can get confusing with the pause and freeze, and people think, oh, well, I didn't do anything, so I'm good. And it's like, oh no,
they're completely different.
Exactly. And so knowing when you're in a freeze versus when you're in a pause, and you're willing to be conscious and be receiving and be open, but also not be putting in effort. And I know there's
so what's balance. The difference between freeze and pause?
I would say that freeze is obviously a state of fear, and pause is a state of receptivity. And so we can't be receiving if we're afraid. And I think also the way that our body and our brain are on in tune and tuning on, and in a pause, you're able to downgrade and out of that problem solving solution mind. Whereas when you're freezing, you're still trying to figure it out. You just are spinning your wheels and it's not going anywhere.
Yes.
My experience with it.
Agreed. 100%. All right. Here's a good question for you. What is the difference between trying to heal and allowing the body to receive?
I can give so much personal testament to this. Obviously, it's a matter of effort, but I think more than effort, it's a force. Healing, quote unquote, comes from a desire to change, right? You get sick of your own stuff. I'm not going to live like this. I don't want to be like this. And doing isn't always in the right direction. And healing is always in the right direction. It might not feel like it, but when we are receiving and we're open, we're changing and evolving. But when we're doing, we're not always evolving. That makes sense.
I think we work against ourselves. The doing, to me, relates to fixing, validation. We talked about that earlier. What am I getting out of it?
Exactly.
Versus healing is a long, windy road of messy, uncomfortable feeling, going backward, going forward. It seems like in your body, but it's like Marie Kondo. You're just clearing out the stuff. And then you got to decide, oh, this makes me feel this way, but I don't need that in my closet anymore. I'm going to have gratitude for what it taught me or for how it made me feel at the time. And we're going to pass it along.
Yeah. And I think as someone who, like I said before, I don't do well in stillness.
I don't either. People say, you don't meditate? And I said, oh, no, I call it active meditation. So walking or doing something rhythmical. For you, I'm sure it's dance. It's something that puts me in a flow state.
Exactly.
And stillness doesn't do that for me. And in that sense, I can sit around and do nothing. And that to me is relaxing. I've learned to not be busy all the time, which was in itself a very hard feat for me to just slow down.
And not fill the time. But yeah, I think the doing nothing, I haven't quite mastered that.
You'll get there. You can't not do nothing. You have young kids. Yeah. Very different when you're taking care of a family unit. And I don't think that happens for moms until the kids start to become more self-sufficient. The mommy guilt is real. And we know that we're supposed to nurture, but sometimes nurturing also comes from confidence through independence. Allowing my kids to do their thing, not as hovery, not as what's going on over there, has created space for me to look at my stuff instead of looking at how they're living their lives. How do I want to live mine? What do I need to do now for me?
But even to your point, it's like, even listening to you say that, it's the difference between the doing of the healing and the receiving, because as a mom, we're doing out of fears. I don't want something to happen, or I want to make sure I tell them everything. And, oh, time's going so fast. What if I'm not? The fear of it. And I have to trust myself. And I think, especially with the modalities that I use, and the doing versus the receiving of healing is, you have to give space in between. You can use that as your fixing tool, or you can use this tool and then go out and see, how do I participate in the world now that I've experienced this tool? And to me, that's the difference between doing the healing and receiving the healing, right? Is, oh, in this situation, I didn't respond the same. Or, now that my kids are older, it's different. How do I want to approach this? That's the healing.
It's the integration into your life. Right in that moment, that hour. And then you step back into your chaotic life and you don't apply what you received from that session. And it doesn't help.
Exactly. I had this client a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, okay, this is great and everything, and I feel so much more relaxed, and I'm going into this important meeting, but what do I do when you're not here? How do I make it work?
I'm going to focus on my breath during the meeting, even though part of my brain is doing the presentation, but over here, I can regulate my breathing while I'm doing it. That to me is the integration.
Even a sound healing, it's muscle memory, it's energy memory. So if you are giving yourself these opportunities to experience this, then you can remember. You can be like, oh, before I go into that meeting, I remember what peace felt like.
I remember how it felt.
Oh, I can get back there. And the moment we remember it, we receive it, we experience it again. Remembering that you have the moment to pause when you need to.
I love that. Is there a level of control the body has to release in order to receive?
I don't think so. I always tell people, you've already done the hardest thing. You took the time out of your day to be here. And to me, that means you're already open to receiving, but Just being in the room is already opening you.
There's always that surprise when someone goes, I'm not going to get anything out of this, but I'm here. I promise so-and-so I'd try. And then it becomes transformative.
Oh, what was that? What did you do? What was that?
Are you a witch? Right? Like, were you doing something else while we were laying there? And no, it's the sound. That's the magic. It's the sound.
And to that point too, I know there's many different instruments we can use in sound healing. And what I try to tell people too is it's how you're receiving it. But that's what for me is so amazing is depending on who's in the room, it sounds different. I could play the exact same things, but you're receiving it differently. And then that energy is this like current.
Okay. Does that mean that the people that are receiving it are also creating their own sound wave, so to speak, as a collective? Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And then it matters, you know, there's people in the room next to you. And we were talking about this kind of before we got into it, is we live in a vibrant, amazing, wonderful time, right? And it's very rare that you're going to find stillness. So everything becomes a part of your sound bath. And it's the dripping of the air conditioner. It's the dog. It's the person snoring next to you. If you allow that, if you're open and you allow that to become a part of your sound healing, it's your everything becomes a sound bath. You know, and everything is an opportunity to pause. So we are receiving our own sound bath in that way. And then also resonating, because what's coming off of you, the energy of people next to you are receiving that energy. It's so funny because as adults, I will come in and I'm like, okay, make sure you use the restroom or get some water. And then we lay down and people are like fidgeting. And I'm like, it's okay if you just get up and go, because they can feel that. And that is distracting. It's not the sound that you're making. It's the energy that you're trying to contain. It's about capacity. I was telling you earlier, I had this one client who's like, oh, ever since I started working with you, like the little things just don't get to me anymore. And I took that as such an amazing feedback, because life must just be a little bit easier for you if you're not irritated by the dripping of the thing that used to bother you and used to distract you. How amazing that your capacity for disruption and distraction, especially in today's age where everything is distracting, you've been able to grow your capacity to not be distracted by that. Like, good job.
What happens when you grow the capacity is you grow the space for the in-between, the in-between of stimulus and reaction. So when your capacity gets more, it's not just, I can be uncomfortable longer. Part of it is that, but it's also you have more room in that bubble between feeling a stimulus that might be uncomfortable and choosing or not to react to it. Whereas when our nervous system is amped up and there's no space and you just feel like you're full all the time, there's no space between that. So something happens and you go. Versus here, it's like something happens. Yeah, no, I don't think so. And then you go on with your day. And that's huge.
I have to say, one of the biggest outcomes for me of diving into the work that I do is I used to be so incredibly reactionary until I understood that I could give myself the space where I don't have to react to that right now. I don't even have to respond to that right now.
It's you protecting your own nervous system in a healthy, positive way. So what shifts when the body finally lets go? What happens out in the real world when those things happen for you in a session consistently?
You spend more time in the pause. You spend more time in the awareness rather than the doing, than the fixing. And also in my experience, I don't want to say you care less, but things feel less important. They feel less needing of your response. You're just like, okay, what shifts, I think, is unique and independent to each person, but what's coming to mind is your ability to trust yourself, is to quiet the outside noise and the outside voices and to hear your internal voice and to really feel that for yourself. Everyone receives the messages differently, whether they're visual, they're, sensing things, all of that. But also when you're out in the world and you can hear your voice more clearly, you're doing that everywhere, all the time.
And it affects everything, the decisions that you're making, how you feel in your body.
Everything. I know myself, but also other clients are like, I would have been in this situation and the past would have triggered me, until you're in the situations where once you would have responded or reacted. Now you're like, I didn't do that. I changed the course of everything.
You're changing the course of everything within you, but nothing around you has changed. So what I call that is, we talked about awareness. It's the allowing. It's not yours. It could be yours, but you're in that allowing. Nothing has really changed, but how you feel, how you receive it, knowing that you have a choice, or you can ask for space, it changes everything.
And you're right. The things around you maybe didn't change, but then they do. Once you change, it has to change.
True.
That person can't get in that cycle with you anymore. That situation's not the same. And there might be some pushback. Maybe it's a little harder at first, but over time, it's like a ripple, and we don't see growth. Just as like a mom, you don't see the changes in your kid as much as someone who doesn't see them as often. When you're in it, you don't realize, but maybe you run into someone like, oh, you seem different, or this is different, or things in your life start to feel different. I think oftentimes you might have these people who are quite cynical or negative, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's a little easier, and oh, I just got lucky. And then before you know it, you're like, no, you shifted. We can talk all about vibration and where we're at and the hierarchy, but when your energy shifts, everything around you shifts. So you deter things, you pull things in, and it's just, there's no way anything could stay the same if you change,
What might someone notice after a session?
Oh, they're relaxed. They might feel tired, depending especially on what time the session is. If it's at nighttime, they'd be like, oh, I just want to go to bed. In the morning, they might be energized. In general, I think people just feel more calm. The goal is to get into that kind of brainwave state where you're like dreamy, where you're like, okay, I can hear if someone calls my name, but like I'm not required to do anything. And it's like almost like a power up,
Are the shifts always subtle, or sometimes are they big?
Oh, they could definitely be big, depending on what someone's going through. You just never really realize what people are carrying. I don't know if sound baths in general are incredibly cathartic to most people, but they definitely can be. For a lot of people, it doesn't feel safe to slow down. And just that alone is such a relief. If you're going right back to work after this or out to dinner with friends at a restaurant, it's a bit shocking to your system, and I try to remind people, like, after a marathon, you wouldn't go out and have 5 beers. It's kind of like your body's been through a bit of a marathon. It's moving things and you need to continue doing that. So I do think there's a good amount of time afterwards, depending on the person. It could be a couple hours, but it could even be a couple of days of just like, what happened there? What's shifting? And if you're someone who's very empathic or connected, and there are things that happen around you too that might kind of get pulled into that.
When I did a sound healing session with Sabrina, at the end, my body just released and I started crying. It wasn't the bawling, but there was a definite release of emotion that was there. And I didn't ask my body at the time what it was. I just let it spill over. So I don't know if we want to consider that cathartic, but there was definitely movement.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the emotions that come up in the ripple are the ones that we stored in our bodies because we don't ever want to feel like that again.
Yeah.
Bury it.
We think we buried it.
But, now you're carrying around sadness and grief and despair. And so you're always going to feel it a little bit because it's in your tissue. Versus if you just allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to let it go. I don't even know what it was.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Oh, for sure. It's even better.
I've gotten to the point with healing out. Just let it go.
Well,
I've done a lot of work. I don't need to revisit what it could be, should be.
Well, it's not a mind problem, so the mind can't solve it. And I think we have to allow that.
I like that. It's not necessarily about what changes. It's more about what softens, right?
Definitely. All of us these days, it's like we have to be so great at marketing ourselves, right? And what marketing wants is the outcome of what's going to happen. What am I going to get? What guarantee can you give me? And I struggle because I can't give you a guarantee. I can just tell you I'm going to invite you to the opportunity. And in that very moment, maybe your body doesn't want catharsis because you've held on so long. And if you open up the floodgates, you just won't get it back. And now is not the right time, And we need to trust that in a way, giving ourselves the opportunities over and over and over again to feel safe and to feel open and to feel faith and acknowledgement in our discomfort that we've overcome everything so far. We've gotten through whatever that is, returning to the trust in ourselves,
I like that. I think that's a really good place to close. Is there anything else that you want our listeners or someone that is curious but hesitant to know about sound healing?
You can't do it wrong. You can't mess it up. You can't force it. I think if you have the opportunity to explore, just try, and then you'll know. You know what I mean? I don't think we should judge things before we go into them. I will say it's not a bath. I did have a friend that's like, do I lay in the bath? And I'm like, no, it's the bathing of the sound over you. And no one explains it to you. And so also, if you're uncomfortable, don't participate. Just roll onto your side or take a nap. What I want people to know is, whoever needs to hear this, is you have permission to experience these modalities in the way that feels healthy to you.
Or not experience them at all. But give it a try. Don't poo-poo it without at least trying it.
I'd say of all the modalities, sound healing is probably the least risky, least
Agreed.
dangerous.
And that's why I wanted to have it on the show, because you don't have to do anything, which is uncomfortable for some people. Mm-hmm. But you really just get to receive. It's such a gift if you allow yourself to step into it.
Very much.
As you move out of this conversation, just notice what you hear around you. Maybe it's subtle. The birds outside, the music in the background, even the sound of your own breath. And instead of tuning it out or staying in your head, see what it's like to actually let yourself hear it, to receive it, not analyze it, not move past it. Just let it land in your own body and notice what happens. Does anything soften? Does your body stay braced? Or does it shift, even slightly? Because for a lot of people, this is where the work actually begins. Not in doing more, but in letting something in. So carry that with you today. Let yourself notice what's already here and what changes when you stop trying to manage the experience and allow your body to finally receive it. Our shift has ended for today.